Let's talk about the best girl in My Hero Academia. So I wanted to talk about Suyu Atsui. If you've ever watched the show, all the kids are different. They're called quirks, but basically they're superpowers. And her quirk is essentially to do anything a frog can. So these range from being able to jump, she can stick and climb up walls, she has great swimming skills, her skin can secrete toxins, and what I really want to talk about today was her tongue. Educational purposes. So when I was researching this, I was actually really shocked to learn how her tongue is actually relatively accurate to what a frog can actually do with their tongue. You'll see her kind of pulling like her comrades and enemies to and fro, and in real life, frogs can actually lift almost about 1.5 times their own weight with just their tongue. And this actually kind of makes sense because we have this notion of frogs that they're like cute little nursery school animals, they eat little bugs and stuff, but the truth is frogs are incredibly gluttonous carnivores, and if they think they can fit something into their mouth, they will eat it. They will not just eat flies, it's for very, very little frogs. A larger frog will eat anything from birds, mice, lizards, and one thing a smaller frog has to be afraid of the most is probably just simply a bigger, hungrier frog. Their tongue is shockingly fast. In about the blink of an eye, the tongue can go out, grab its food, and pull it back in. And so, like I said, it's about 15th 100ths of a second, shockingly fast. Their tongue is able to lash out that quickly because scientists have actually studied their tongue, and frog tongues are one of the softest organic materials. The comparison I read was actually softer than brain matter. And if you want to sound cuter, it's like softer than a marshmallow. So they have a very, very soft tongue. This allows for that incredible stretchiness. Incidentally, the only super like inaccurate thing about Sue's tongue is how long it is, because as you can see, she kind of uses it sort of like Spider-Man going to and fro. In the show, it's about 20 meters. In real life, frog tongues are only about 1/3 of their body. So Sue was a little more accurate. Her tongue would only go about to her belly button. And I want to talk a little bit about the stickiness of that tongue and why. So there was an amazing study down in Georgia Tech about what made their tongues so sticky, and the truth is it's actually in the spit. Frog saliva is called a non-Newtonian fluid, meaning it's simultaneously liquid and solid, and the best example you guys might be familiar with is if you ever mix water and cornstarch together. And so there's a moment where it's incredibly soft and you pull it out and it hardens, same thing, it's a non-Newtonian fluid. And the saliva on the frog's tongue changes depending on its location. So when it's inside the mouth, it's very light. It's similar to spit you and I might have. The frog sticks out its tongue, and as soon as the tongue touches something, it immediately will harden to a substance. The comparison I've read is about like the stickiness of honey. And this can stick to anything. Like I said, frogs will eat anything, so this saliva will stick to scales, exoskeletons, skin, feathers, fur, anything like that. It grabs the food, it pulls it immediately back into its mouth, where the hardness returns, like I said, into a much more like liquidy saliva. Little fun fact about frogs too, frogs' esophagus muscles are very, very weak, so when a frog swallows, they actually need to use their eyeballs. So if you watch a frog eat, it'll pull the food in and then it'll blink, and the muscles from its eyes actually push the food into its mouth. And remember, this is all going on in about the time it takes you and me to blink our eyes. So you guys want to see a frog eat some food?
One other non-Newtonian fluid is actually ketchup.
Okay.
Is a non-Newtonian fluid. And if you remember the glass bottles for ketchup, when you would tap them, they would suddenly just release. That's because it's not a naturally viscous fluid. There's this weird, non-Newtonian nature to it.
Yeah, we're gonna watch you make some treats. And if you guys are curious about this study, I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but this was this girl that did all the amazing research down at Georgia Tech, And so these are actually her videos we use just for educational purposes, but they're really, really cool. And like I said, if you guys enjoy amphibian friends or just kind of curious about, like I said, the science behind what animals do, I definitely recommend you check out her stuff. I didn't know a lot about this. I just thought Sue would be a cool character to use for this, and I was like delighted. But to me, that's kind of the fun thing about like animals, you know, like I'm always learning, I'm always finding these really cool things to learn and then get to share with you guys. So yeah, you got a treat. All right, let me get one more here, or, okay, cool. All right, awesome, so
I am gonna go next to a classic show called Star Blazers to set up the next thing I'm gonna be showing. So this is a setup of the world.
我々の艦隊はあと何隻残っているか。はい、本艦のほかミサイル艦が1隻だけです。誰の船だ。護衛隊長古代の船であります。
Let's delve into his old man's memories.
そうか、もうこれまでだな。撤退しろ。艦長、逃げるんですか。このままでは自滅するだけだ。撤退する。進路満点180度。 わしに続け。僕は嫌です。ここで撤退したら死んでいった者に顔向けできません。いいか古代、ここで今全滅してしまっては地球を守るために戦う者はいなくなってしまうんだ。明日のために今日の屈辱に耐えるんだ。それの男だ。沖田さん、男だったら戦い抜いて一つでも多くの敵をやっつけて死ぬべきじゃないんですか。古代、分かってくれ。 進路変更、要素180度回転完了。艦長。
I think I put the wrong clip in here. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So what happens is in Star Blazers, the Earth has sort of been devastated in the current time, but a few years earlier, and this is from the remake, we see this scene. We're looking back at Earth through a sort of what Earth looked like when they were 8 light years away.
グリーゼ581に達する予定です。12光年か。ヤマトの VLBI 望遠鏡であの地球の姿を見られる最後の機会だな。真田君。はい。 太陽系から8.6光年。つまりこれはおよそ8年前の地球の姿だ。ガミラスの侵略を受ける前の地球か。みんなよく見ておけ。これが我々が取り戻すべき本来の地球だ。
So what I like about this clip is sort of a play on using relativity as they're traveling further from Earth. The nature is that the light that came from Earth 8 years ago looks like the light of Earth, looks like Earth from 8 years ago because the speed of light is a limited speed and they've traveled further than that. And I like when you have these simple moments in a show that show a nice bit of scientific thought to them. And that was from Yamato 2199. The new one is 2202, new season.
All right, so we talked about the best girl in My Hero Academia, so I thought it'd be fair if we talked about a best boy. You guys want to hear about a best boy? We're going to talk about the best boy in Agretzko.
Hey, level with me. Who's this guy that Retzko's dating?
What? She said to hang anyone?
I wasn't born yesterday. I see it on her face. You must know something about the dude.
Okay. It's Rasasuke in sales. I never saw it coming. My bad.
It's not your fault I waited too long. I want to punch him. Could I be more pathetic?
So, if you watch the show, Haida has a very sweet, very good-natured personality, and incidentally, this is not too off when it comes to male hyenas. Male hyenas are kind of an interesting animal because even though often they get referred to as a matriarchal society where the females are in charge, that's not entirely accurate. The majority are what we would call matrifocal. So the females tend to lean to clans, and the reason why actually kind of goes into hyenas' social structures. Hyenas have a very, very hereditary way of figuring out who's in charge. So if you're a hyena and you're born into a high-ranking position, so is most likely your great-great-great-grandmother. It's kind of like Game of Thrones. These hyenas will like chase their lineage back for like centuries. So you can potentially be a male and born into a high-ranking position, but the problem is in your clan, you're usually going to probably want to leave your clan in order to mate. And once you leave your clan, you've basically lost your seniority. So that's why there's that assumption that hyenas tend to be matriarchal. They're not. The women do tend to be in charge, but like I said, a male being in charge of his clan or having a higher rank is possible. It's just unlikely because a lot of males will give up that rank in order to go find mates. So yeah, a little misconception there, but I do like talking about that. And so, like I said, going back to this, I want to talk a little bit about males themselves and why and how they tend to do their courtship for science. So female hyenas actually do tend to choose males who are, to put it simply, usually the nicer ones. They choose males who are doting, who are affectionate. Younger female hyenas tend to simply choose males who have done what's called shadowing. The male just basically kind of follows her around, and kind of wins over her trust. And female hyenas who are older will usually end up with males that they've established years of pretty much a mutual trust and respect for. And male hyenas will invest years into kind of basically winning over the trust of female hyenas. And the question is why? Because if you look at animal kingdoms, a lot of males are incredibly aggressive when it comes to mating. And the answer, as always, goes into genitalia. I had to censor that because we're not using our panel. But that bar is accurate on its size, just in case you guys were curious. So the female hyena's clitoris is 7 inches long, and it is fused together with her labia, which has essentially created a pseudo-penis. Unless you know what you're looking at, they're very, very, very hard to tell apart from male hyenas. The female hyenas use the pseudo-penis to do essentially everything through. They urinate through it, they mate through it, and they even give birth to it, which you can imagine, yes, there is a very high infant and mother mortality rate in first-time female hyenas giving birth. But as you can imagine, like I said, if you think of her genitalia, essentially there'd be no way for a male to aggressively force himself on a female. She is in complete control of that mating situation, which is why it's so important that a male wins her over through kindness and doting and whatnot, or else she will not allow that, and there's no way he can demand it. Like I said, male hyenas having that very sweet, very kind, gentle nature is so important for them in order to be able to mate. And so I kind of liked Haida because even though hyenas get portrayed in a lot of cartoons and media as kind of conniving and cowardly, Haida is actually incredibly accurate to the type of personality a male hyena would have in order to acquire a mate.